Welcome to this week's episode of the Best Damn Coach podcast. As always, I'm super pumped that you are here. And we're diving into an episode that was inspired, of course, by my BDC members. It's a recurring question that I have had with clients over the years consistently. And it is basically like, hey, I always seem to go over on my coaching sessions. It's like I have all these good intentions, and then we get to the end, and there's still stuff that we're going, and the client's talking, and I don't want to be rude and interrupt, but I just always seem to go over in coaching sessions. And so today, I really want to support you to talk about how to wrap up a coaching session effectively and without feeling like a major jerk about it. And so, if this is ever something you've experienced, I know you're nodding your head right now. I've totally been there. And especially in the beginning, I definitely struggled with this because I wasn't really using a blueprint or a template to really guide the background and the structure of my coaching sessions. And so I fell into what I would call the winging it coach camp. Even though I'd coached my entire life, I still hadn't coached in this container in a 60-minute Zoom session where I knew I had clients back to back. So I had to be really diligent with my time. And so that's when I developed a blueprint for my coaching sessions. And if you don't have that, first off, just shameless plug, I'm going to invite you to go grab that from us at amanda-walker.com/blueprint and go grab the blueprint. I actually walk you through the exact blueprint. I give you a training to show you and talk about how to maneuver through a coaching session effectively. And we also give you a notes session template. When I'm conducting all of my coaching sessions, I am taking notes and dictations so that I can be intentional about what I write down, and I can always come back to it and visit and know exactly what happened in our last session to pick up the pieces for the next session for it. So again, grab that template at amanda-walker.com/blueprint. And so as we talk about the coaching session in general, I just want to remind you something. You are the sailor of the ship, which means you are the one driving the coaching session. It's not the client. They are not in charge. And the moment that they take over, you actually lose control of the coaching session. And so remember that it's not our job to just let our clients willy-nilly roll through the session and direct which way they're going, or say, I want to do this, I want to do this. We are co-creating, and we are taking the lead on that co-creating space. And so from the moment you step into a coaching session, you want to make sure that you have that leadership position. And so that's you setting the tone, that's you building rapport, and that's you asking the right questions in the kind of flow and the structure of your coaching program or coaching session in order to guide the client to results. And so with that, I really encourage you to pre-frame the structure of your coaching sessions. So I'm going to go back to just my typical one-to-one coaching packages. The first session I would always do with a client was really an audit, an intake, a brainstorming session where I was looking at where they are, where they want to be, where the gaps are, getting to know them, building rapport. And so it didn't feel like a traditional coaching session because I was just doing a ton of asking questions and a lot of dictation and mostly listening. In the second session, though, is when I actually begin to create structure in my coaching sessions. And so it's not my client's job to know what that structure looks like. It's my job to know that structure. So we have to train and teach our clients what to expect. And why this is so effective is over time, they will get more and more prepared when they come to the coaching session. There'll be less fear or doubt or hesitation. They know the structure. It's kind of like if you were ever going to step into an Orange Theory fitness class or a CrossFit class. The first couple times, you don't realize that there's typically a warm up, and then we break into these groups, and then there's a lifting session, and then there's a cardio session. But then the more you go, the more you feel fluid enough to move through those sessions. So that's what we want to do. We want to actually train our clients on how we're going to coach first. And so I teach my clients the expectation of what our coaching structure is going to look like. So I say, I'm going to start with this, then we're going to move into this. I'm going to ask this question, then we're going to do all of the coaching. And then here's the kicker. With about 10 minutes left, this is what I say, I'm always going to kind of pause and put a pin where we are and we're going to wrap up the session and make sure that you have identifiable best next steps to take. This is the tasking. And again, if you go grab the coaching session blueprint, this will make so much more sense. I'll walk you through all these details. But this is already training them that when we are at the 10-minute mark, this is the closure. I am bringing closure to the conversation. And I say, I typically have set, clients after you. So I just want to honor our time together and make sure that we really put a nice, beautiful bow on the coaching session so we're not feeling rushed. So if you've never done that, this is going to absolutely improve your coaching sessions because you and the client know exactly the framework that you're going to be using inside of the coaching session. Next is, if you are brand new to this, I really encourage you to just create a bit of a buffer between your coaching sessions. Don't go back to back to back. I feel fine going back to back because I know I have no problem setting boundaries around the ending. And I will, I still give myself about 5 minutes in there just to use the restroom or whatever. But you might book, hour sessions, but give yourself a 15-minute buffer. That way you have time to finish out your notes and go to the next session. So definitely give space to buffer. Another way to really help you, if you feel comfortable with it or you really like it, is to set an Audible timer. So you could train them and say, hey, at 10 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and set our timer right now. Every session, I'm going to set my timer for 45 minutes. At 45 minutes, this will let us know that we have about 15 minutes left in the session. And that's the audible reminder to the client, we are wrapping up, right? And so we're going to start to head down to home plate. You've hit a home run that session, and we are about to be done. So that is another great little hack that can definitely help you. The other piece inside of the actual coaching session, notice I haven't even really hit on going over yet because so much of going over will be resolved if you do these things inside of the coaching session first. The fourth piece is setting the actionable goal for the session. So at the beginning of sessions, I teach my clients all to set an outcome goal for that session. So the question might sound like, for this to be a magnificently superb, amazing coaching session with me, what do you want to walk away with? Or what would you like to have accomplished? Or what do we need to have clarification around? So they set the goal. Oftentimes what happens is our clients are only with us for this little bit of time. So they want to do like all of these things and they want to maximize all this time. So they bring up 15 different things. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor and you're just going to see the doctor for a cough. And then you're like, but I got this pain here. And when this happens, and the doctor's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I want to get to the root of the cough first. And then we can hit those other things. Same with coaching. So when we set the session goal, we're primarily focused on the session goal there. We're doing all the work around that specific goal. And then if there's still space, some of those other pieces could fall into place. But I use this goal to redirect. So if all of a sudden I feel like the conversation's going way out in left field, I will say something to the effect of, okay, totally hear what you're saying, but remember our session goal is this. So let's go ahead and get back to that goal. And I'm going to leave some notes right here in my coaching notes. And if it feels like that's still relevant, then we will definitely come back to it. So that's one way to really make sure. Sorry, guys, had to take a sip of water there. Tickle in my throat before you kind of deviate from the session entirely. And then you're lost in this like other daydream of a land and it feels a little bit like chaotic and you've missed the mark. Okay. Lastly, I really want to look at the boundaries. I really want to talk about the art of boundary setting here because the reason most of you are going over is that you are afraid or nervous to set a boundary because you're afraid. Here's how it usually sounds like, well, they're paying me. I don't want to interrupt them. I'm cutting them off and they're paying me this money to support them. I don't want them to like feel rushed. I don't want them to, what will they think of me if? The reality is, if you don't set that boundary, then they're going to keep pressing upon it. And each time you're going to see that session goes over because you weren't the one to head it off. Right? So it becomes a pattern. And that same client, you'll notice them, it's always the same one. So we have to teach them what our expectation is in order to effectively close out a coaching session. So when we put these other things in place, then typically it resolves itself. And then I've had the client in the BDC say, I do those things, I'm pretty sure. And it still always goes over. And the reality is, if you're at 10 minutes and you stop the session and you say, this is your homework, you won't go over. So, what that tells me is they're not doing that. They're not stopping the session with 8 to 10 minutes left, and they're not redirecting towards the tasking and the homework. And that's typically because the client is in the middle of something and they're afraid to interrupt. And so, here's some ways that you can nicely say that. Hey, I love where you're at right now, and we only have 10 minutes left. So I'm just going to take some notes and we're going to pick up here where we left off on the next session. Or you could say something like, this has been a really powerful session, and I see there's like more that we still want to cover, and I'm so excited to do that. But I want to make sure that we give you next steps so we really maximize this coaching session. So I'm going to take notes on where we left off, and then this is where we're going to pick up next time if it still feels relevant. So what you're not doing is disregarding where they're trying to take you. You are actually just saying, I acknowledge it, but this is the time and space we have for today. And actually, if we're trying to solve 15 problems, we're really not going to solve anything together. And so we want to make sure that you are breaking the pattern of just letting your clients walk all over you. And it probably shows up in different places. It might be that they ask for an extra coaching session, or it might be that they're like, I can't show up. Can you reschedule me last minute? Or I really wanted to do it at this time. So you might notice potentially that this is happening in a lot of different ways. And so in that case, the arrows do point back towards you and the boundaries that you're setting around your time and your energy investment. And so I just want to be clear that this is an amazing opportunity for you to set solid boundaries around your coaching sessions, but also in other aspects of your life. Because I think that if this is happening there, it's probably happening in other places. When the salesman knocks on your door and you can't get them to get away, and you just listen for hours because you're afraid to hurt their feelings and saying, hey, I'm not interested. I wish you the best. So I would just encourage you to ask yourself, is this showing up in other areas? And how can I use my coaching as a means to break this cycle and interrupt this pattern of struggling to set boundaries in general? Remember, our thinking drives our actions. So if we're thinking, oh my gosh, I should over deliver, I shouldn't set a boundary, they're paying me, then that is the direct action. What you're experiencing right now, if those sessions continually overflow, is because of that. So really get to the root of your internal dialogue around why you're struggling to set boundaries, and also go take some of the actionable steps I suggested. Pre-framing the call structure, giving yourself some space and buffer, and setting either a timer if you feel good about that, but for sure setting an outcome goal so you have something to constantly redirect the traffic back towards, so that by the end of the session, both you and your client leave feeling totally confident and excited about the results you created together. And again, if you want that blueprint, then I want you to head on over to amanda-walker.com/blueprint. Pick that up for yourself. There's also an option to add on our onboarding templates and our offboarding templates, which are filled with the specific emails, 3-step emails you can send when a client jumps into your coaching and when a client's about to end, and examples of forms and templates for all of the intake questions that you might also offer. So it's packed with all sorts of goodness. So again, head on over to amanda-walker.com/blueprint. As always, coaches, I'm so pumped to be with you every week. I hope this episode gives you some light bulbs on some golden nuggets that you can immediately implement. And of course, if you want to talk about the episode, head on over to Instagram. That's where I'm talking about shows all week long. And I'd love to know more about how this really impacted you. And if you know a coach in your world that could benefit from this discussion, then I am always honored if you just copy this link, send it to them in a text message or a Voxer or through Instagram, so we can keep serving coaches to really uphold the coaching industry and really deliver the best results possible with our clients.